Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. Today we're embarking on a deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 18, The Office of the Judge.
It's a fascinating collection of Islamic teachings, really
Yeah.
gets into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. Specifically focusing on the immense responsibilities and challenges faced by those who judge between people.
It goes far beyond just the legal aspects.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to be diving into the psychology, the spirituality of judgment, the societal implications, even the very human struggles judges face in trying to uphold justice.
I'm really intrigued to see how these ancient teachings can shed light on some of these contemporary issues that we see today.
Oh, absolutely. Like corruption.
Yeah, and bias.
And of course, the pursuit of power, which, seems to be quite relevant these days.
Always relevant.
Yeah, always in the news.
Always in the news, that's for sure.
One of the first things that really struck me when I went into this book was just the sheer gravity of the judge's role.
Yeah.
Hadiths 3564 and 3565 really drive that point home.
Yeah.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, uses this really powerful metaphor.
Okay.
He says, someone appointed as a judge has been killed without a knife.
Wow. That's a chilling image.
It really is.
I mean, it really underscores the potential for harm through unjust ruling. It's not just about making illegal decisions.
It's not just about the law.
It's about, these potential ripple effects that impact people's lives, their families, even whole communities.
Absolutely. It's a profound, it speaks to a profound psychological and spiritual burden that judges carry.
It's true. Imagine having that power to impact people's destinies, to shape the course of their lives through your decisions.
I know, it's a heavy, heavy thing.
It makes you think about the immense responsibility that comes with that kind of authority.
Yes.
And it raises a very crucial question. What kind of person is actually equipped to handle that kind of weight?
That's a question the Hadith addresses directly.
Okay.
Hadith 3566 outlines 3 types of judges, paints a very stark contrast between them. One judge is destined for paradise, while the other 2 face, a grim fate.
Yeah.
In hell.
Wow, that's pretty serious categorization.
Absolutely.
It sounds like, obviously intention and knowledge are key factors here.
Absolutely.
So the judge who's striving to apply justice according to divine guidance is rewarded.
Yes.
And those who are knowingly perverting justice or acting out of ignorance face, a very different outcome.
This really underscores that a righteous judge isn't just someone who knows the law.
Right.
They have to possess this deep commitment to truth and fairness, guided by a strong moral compass.
That makes me think of the saying, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yes.
So a righteous judge also must act decisively and efficiently, making sure that justice is actually served in a timely manner.
That's a great point. Justice shouldn't be bogged down by unnecessary delays, bureaucratic hurdles. And this idea of acting justly, is further emphasized in Hadith 3568, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, contrasts judges whose justice prevails over, you could say, their tyranny,
right,
with those whose tyranny dominates.
So there's this constant internal battle for a judge.
Oh, absolutely.
Between upholding justice and kind of succumbing to personal biases, external pressures, even maybe their own desires for power or recognition.
Precisely. It's a struggle that we all face, in different ways.
That's true.
But for a judge, the stakes are incredibly high.
Absolutely.
Their decisions have far-reaching consequences, impacting not just individuals, but, entire communities, entire societies.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the motivations behind even seeking these positions of authority.
It really does.
Is it a genuine desire to serve justice? Or are there some other factors at play? Ego, ambition, just this thirst for power.
Yeah, that's a really crucial question.
It is.
And one that Hadiths 3570 and 3571 actually address in a really fascinating way. They contrast 2 types of individuals. The one who eagerly seeks out the judge's seat, and then the one who is actually chosen for it.
Right, even if they weren't actually pursuing the role.
Exactly, like being called to serve.
Almost like, the difference between chasing after power and being called to serve.
Yeah, I like that.
One might be driven by ambition or a desire for recognition, while the others may be more hesitant, more humble.
But ultimately guided by a higher purpose.
Yes.
And that makes me think about, even for ourselves, how important it is to discern our own motivations when we're seeking out positions of leadership or authority.
Yeah, that's a question we all need to ask ourselves, regardless of our profession or position.
Absolutely.
I think speaking of dangerous motivations, Hadith 3573 delivers a very powerful message against bribery and corruption.
Oh, yeah.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, explicitly curses both the giver and the receiver of bribes.
It's very clear.
So integrity is, really the cornerstone of justice. When decisions are bought and sold, then the very foundation of a fair and equitable system just crumbles.
It's something that really resonates deeply with contemporary concerns about corruption's effects on societies around the world.
Absolutely. I mean, we see it in governments, we see it in businesses.
Even in institutions.
Yeah, even institutions that are supposed to be upholding justice.
It's everywhere.
It really is.
And, it's not just these grand acts of bribery. Hadith 3574 really emphasizes the importance of transparency and honesty.
Okay.
Even in seemingly small matters.
Even small matters.
Concealing something, even if it's as small as a needle, is considered a betrayal of trust.
So accountability and integrity aren't just these abstract ideals.
No, they're not.
I mean, they're actually woven into the very fabric of Islamic teachings on justice.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that even these small acts of dishonesty can really erode the foundations of a just system.
Absolutely.
So how do these kind of, I guess you could say, lofty principles translate into real-life action? Like, what does a righteous judge actually look like in practice?
Well, the story of Ali ibn Abu Talib's appointment as a judge in Yemen, recounted in Hadith 3575, offers some really, really beautiful guidance.
This is where, Ali was still relatively young, and he was unsure of himself, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, gives him those 3 key pieces of advice.
Precisely. The first being to seek Allah's guidance.
Yeah.
In every single decision, recognizing that true justice actually flows from divine inspiration. The second, to listen carefully to both sides of a dispute before actually making a judgment, ensuring that all voices are heard, that they're considered.
Right, so everyone feels heard.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the third is to strive for clarity in his judgment, ensuring that his decisions are well-reasoned and easy to understand.
Those 3 pieces of advice are really powerful.
They are.
It's about humility,
Yes.
careful consideration,
Yeah.
and, this deep connection to the divine.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a reminder that justice isn't just about applying the law.
It's not just the law.
It's about seeking wisdom and understanding, a higher truth.
It's a higher calling.
But then, human judgment is also fallible.
Oh, absolutely.
We might not always have that perfect answer.
We're human.
That's right, we are human.
Hadith 3579 sheds light on this by distinguishing between the prophets, peace be upon him, divinely inspired judgments,
Right.
and the potential for human error when we're absent of that guidance.
So it's about acknowledging our limitations
Yes,
and really striving for the best possible judgment,
absolutely.
even when the answers aren't, clear-cut.
And that's where, the human effort comes
Yeah.
in, combining our knowledge and intellect with a deep reliance on that divine inspiration.
Okay, so that concept of balance
Yes.
between divine guidance and human effort
Well,
also plays out in the practical aspects of judgment, too.
yeah, it does, actually.
Yeah.
Like a Hadith 3581 really highlights the importance of the physical setting of a court. The Prophet, peace be upon him, instructed that both parties in a dispute, they should sit before the judge.
Seems like such a simple instruction,
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
but I bet there's a deeper meaning there.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about logistics.
No.
It's about creating an environment of equality and fairness right from the very start.
Precisely. Having them sit before the judge on an equal level, it sets the tone for the entire proceeding. Symbolizes that, everyone, regardless of background, regardless of social standing, they're equal.
Equal in the eyes of the law.
Exactly.
So it's incredible how these teachings address both the grand principles of justice
Yeah.
and those seemingly small, practical details.
The details matter.
They really do.
It shows that justice is this holistic concept.
Yeah.
It encompasses our inner state, our outer actions, the systems we create, even the way we interact with each other.
And that interconnectedness is really illustrated in Hadith 3584, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, intervened to ensure equal blood money payments between 2 tribes. and this was regardless of their previous customs.
This signifies the importance of dismantling discriminatory practices,
Yeah.
ensuring that the law applies equally.
Equally to everyone,
To everyone.
regardless of their background or social status.
You know, it's a powerful reminder that true justice requires us to challenge those traditions and customs that actually perpetuate inequality or undermine the fundamental rights of individuals.
Yeah, I mean, we can't achieve true justice if the system itself is biased or discriminatory.
They can't.
Now, this commitment to dismantling these discriminatory practices is exemplified, really, in Hadith 3585.
Oh, yes. This is a story I think you'll find very insightful.
Okay.
Involves Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was sent to Yemen as a judge.
Oh, okay. I love these stories because they bring the teachings to life, and they show us how these principles were applied in real-life situations.
Well, before Mu'adh set off, the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked him, "How will you judge cases?" And Mu'adh replied, "I will refer to Allah's book first and foremost."
Makes sense.
Right. I mean, the Quran is the ultimate source of guidance in Islam.
The foundation.
Exactly. It's the foundation upon which the entire system of Islamic law is built.
But what if he couldn't find, a clear answer in the Quran? What was his next step?
Well, the Prophet, peace be upon him, anticipated that question.
Okay.
Asked Mu'adh, "What would you do if you couldn't find guidance in the Quran?" Mu'adh responded, "I would then refer to the Sunnah."
Okay, the sin.
Which refers to the Prophet's, peace be upon him, own teachings, his own practices.
Ontological.
Right. I mean, it provides practical examples of how those principles from the Quran were actually applied in the Prophet's, peace be upon him, own life.
But then, what if the answer wasn't clear in the Sunnah either? What would Mu'adh do then?
You know, that's where it gets really fascinating.
Okay.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, asked Mu'adh what he would do if he couldn't find clear guidance in either the Quran or the Sunnah. And Mu'adh confidently replied that he would strive to form his own opinion, using his best judgment and sparing no effort.
So it's not just about blindly following rules or precedents.
No, it's not.
It's about engaging in independent reasoning and critical thinking, but still within that framework of Islamic teachings.
Absolutely.
I love that.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
So what did the Prophet, peace be upon him, say to that?
Well, he was clearly pleased. He patted Mu'adh on the chest and said, "Praise be to Allah, who has helped the messenger of the Apostle of Allah to find something which pleases the Apostle of Allah."
Wow. That's a really powerful endorsement of Mu'adh's approach to judgment.
It is.
It shows that Islam really encourages critical thinking and thoughtful deliberation,
Yes, it does.
empowering individuals to really seek justice,
Yeah.
even in complex or unprecedented situations.
It's that balance.
Right, that balance again.
Divine guidance and human intellect.
Right.
We rely on the Quran and Sunnah,
Mhm.
but we're also encouraged to use our own reason and judgment to apply those principles in a way that upholds justice and fairness.
This reminds me of something else we see in the Hadiths, the concept of agreements and settlements.
Yes.
So Islamic law recognizes that not all disputes actually need to be settled in a formal court setting.
You're absolutely right. Hadith 35587 acknowledges that. It acknowledges the permissibility of settlements between Muslims.
Okay.
However, there's a crucial caveat.
Okay.
The agreement cannot contradict Islamic law.
So there's room for flexibility and compromise,
There is.
but always within those boundaries of ethical and legal principles.
Always within the boundaries.
That's a really key point. It highlights the importance of considering both the letter and the spirit of the law when you're trying to resolve disputes.
Absolutely.
It's not just about following the rules blindly. It's about understanding those underlying principles of justice and fairness that really inform those rules.
And on the flip side of that, we have Hadith 3590, which outlines, those dire consequences of falsehood and deceit.
Yeah.
Obstructing justice,
Right.
engaging in false disputes, making untrue accusations. They're all condemned in the strongest terms.
It makes me think about the dangers of misinformation and slander, especially in today's world with social media.
Oh, it's rampant.
I mean, it's so prevalent. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's just a reminder that, our words have power.
They do.
We have a responsibility to use them truthfully and ethically,
And a single lie can have such devastating consequences.
especially in legal contexts.
Especially.
And that brings us to another really crucial element in ensuring just outcomes.
Okay.
Witness testimony.
Hadiths 3592 to 3595 delve into this.
Okay.
They get into the qualifications, the disqualifications of witnesses.
And I think that's so fascinating. You know how Islamic law really meticulously safeguards justice by ensuring that only those credible voices are heard in court.
Exactly. It's not just about anyone stepping forward to give testimony.
Right.
The court has a responsibility to actually assess the credibility and trustworthiness.
Of those providing evidence.
Exactly.
So someone who, let's say, holds a grudge against their brother
Yes.
or is financially dependent on, a particular family
Mm-hmm.
might be deemed unreliable as a witness because their testimony could be clouded by those personal biases or ulterior motives.
Right. There need to be safeguards
Yeah.
in place.
To make sure that that evidence presented in court is as objective and truthful as possible.
It needs to be pure.
As pure as possible.
Yes.
But what about those situations
Mm.
where there are no Muslim witnesses available?
That's a great question. It's hard to imagine a scenario like that in the Prophet's, peace be upon him, time.
Right.
But in today's diverse world, it's certainly a possibility.
It is, absolutely.
Well, Hadith 3598 provides a really compelling example of this.
Okay.
Abu Musa al-Ash'ari,
Okay.
a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, accepted the testimony of non-Muslim witnesses in will case
Okay.
because there were no Muslim witnesses present.
Wow, so there's a nuanced approach
There is.
to non-Muslim involvement in these legal matters
Yes.
when circumstances require.
When circumstances necessitate it.
It highlights the flexibility
Yeah.
and the adaptability of Islamic legal procedures.
While striving for fairness and truth.
While always striving for fairness and truth,
Yes.
it shows that Islamic law isn't just this set of rigid rules.
It's a living tradition,
Yeah.
adaptable to different contexts and situations while upholding those core principles
Of justice and fairness.
of justice and fairness, yeah.
This reminds me of something we were discussing earlier, that balance between divine guidance and human intellect.
Yes.
It seems like Islamic law strikes a beautiful balance
It does.
between, adhering to those established principles, but also adapting to new challenges and complexities.
You're absolutely right. And that balance is really beautifully demonstrated in Hadiths 3599 to 3606,
Okay.
which showcase various scenarios where oaths and different forms of evidence were used to actually reach judgments.
It's fascinating to see how Islamic jurisprudence deals with these situations where there's uncertainty or conflicting evidence.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it involved a single witness coupled with an oath.
Yes.
Other times it involved, circumstantial evidence or even casting lots to determine who would swear an oath.
Exactly. It shows that Islamic jurisprudence isn't rigid or inflexible.
Right.
It has mechanisms for dealing with complex and nuanced situations,
Right.
but always aiming to uphold that justice and fairness.
But always aiming to uphold justice and fairness.
Yes, but at the heart of it all
Okay.
is a reliance on divine guidance,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that ultimately the truth is only known to Allah.
And that kind of leads us back to that importance of seeking divine help.
Absolutely.
Something we touched on earlier. Even when human judgment reaches its limits,
Yeah,
there's always the option of turning to Allah for that guidance and support.
always.
Hadith 3620 really beautifully captures this.
It does.
When the Prophet, peace be upon him, teaches that man to say, "For me Allah sufficeth, and he is the best disposer of affairs."
Beautiful.
When facing those difficult situations, it's a reminder to trust in Allah's plan and seek his guidance, especially when you're dealing with, something as weighty as judgment.
And it's not about passive resignation.
No.
It's about active seeking.
Yes, it's active seeking of that divine guidance.
Yes.
And recognizing that our own efforts, while important,
Yeah.
ultimately are insufficient without Allah's help.
Beautiful. That's
So it really encapsulates the essence of Islam, that blend of human effort and divine grace.
Yes.
Recognizing we're responsible for our actions, but ultimately dependent on Allah for success and guidance.
I love that.
But speaking of striving for excellence in all that we do, let's return to the practical side of things
Okay.
and explore the rulings on debt and imprisonment in a bit more detail.
Right.
Hadith 3621 makes it very clear that delaying payment when someone has the means to do so is a serious offense that warrants punishment.
It really emphasizes financial responsibility,
Right.
honoring our commitments.
Right.
Islam recognizes that financial transactions are based on trust.
Absolutely.
And upholding those commitments is really crucial for maintaining a just and stable society.
So it's not just about fulfilling a contract.
No, it's not.
It's about respecting the other party
Yes.
and recognizing that their livelihood might actually depend on that timely payment.
But what about situations where someone genuinely can't afford to pay their debts?
Yeah, what happens then?
Does Islamic law offer any guidance on that?
That's a really important point.
It is.
Because while Islam emphasizes, upholding financial obligations.
Yes.
It also recognizes that circumstances can change
Absolutely, they do.
and people can fall into hardship through no fault of their own.
Through no fault of their own, exactly.
So the hadiths that we've been looking at really focus on those who are deliberately delaying payment, even though they have the means to do so. So it's not about punishing those who are genuinely struggling.
No, it's not.
It's about holding accountable those who are, maybe abusing the system or taking advantage of others.
Exactly, and that really aligns with the overall emphasis on justice and fairness that we see throughout this book.
Okay.
What about imprisonment in general? What kind of insights can we glean from the hadiths on this topic?
I'm curious about that too.
Hadiths 3622 and 3623 offer these interesting glimpses into how imprisonment was used.
Right.
During the Prophet's, peace be upon him, time.
Okay.
In one case, the Prophet, peace be upon him, tells someone to actually hold on to their debtor until they receive payment,
Okay.
suggesting that imprisonment could be used as a means of recovering debt.
So it wasn't just about punishment.
No.
It was about enforcing contracts and ensuring that people actually fulfill their obligations.
And then in another hadith,
Okay.
we see that the Prophet, peace be upon him, actually imprisoned someone based on suspicion.
Oh, what?
So this suggests that it was also used as a way to maintain order and security, especially in cases where there was a threat to public safety.
It makes sense. But were there any checks and balances in place to prevent abuse of this power?
Hadith 3624 offers this fascinating example of that.
Yep.
A companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, interrupts his sermon
Wow.
to question why his neighbors have been arrested.
Okay.
And the Prophet, peace be upon him, he immediately addresses the concern and orders their release.
So even during a sermon, which was such a central event in the community,
Absolutely.
he was willing to pause and make sure that justice was being upheld.
Justice was being upheld.
The reminder that those in authority
Yes.
should be accountable for their actions.
And open to scrutiny.
Absolutely. No one is above the law,
No one.
and justice should be accessible to all.
To all, that's the point.
And this commitment to fairness
Yes.
extends to all aspects of life,
It does.
from financial dealings to property disputes and even, those seemingly mundane matters,
The mundane matters.
like pathways and water rights.
It's all-encompassing.
It really is.
It's amazing how these hadiths address such a wide range of issues.
They really do.
With such precision and wisdom.
And I'm struck by the rulings on property disputes. They seem to emphasize this balance
Yes.
between individual rights and communal responsibilities.
Like Hadith 3525,
Okay.
where the Prophet, peace be upon him, instructs his agent to give someone 15 wasks of dates, and that's a unit of measurement roughly equivalent to 60 kilograms.
Okay.
And he even provides a specific sign to confirm his identity.
Wow.
He says to place his hand on the agent's collarbone.
So it shows that, individual rights are important,
What do you-
but so is upholding that communal trust and making sure that resources are distributed fairly.
Absolutely. And it's not just about material possessions. Even something like a pathway is addressed in Hadith 3626.
Yeah.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, advises leaving a margin of 7 yards, which is about the length of a car, to prevent disputes and to ensure peaceful coexistence.
That's such a simple yet profound teaching.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
It's about recognizing that our actions, however small, can have an impact on others.
Yeah,
And we should strive to create that environment of peace and harmony.
absolutely. And speaking of avoiding conflict, Hadith 3:628 delivers a very powerful message about the consequences of harming others.
Yeah, the Prophet, peace be upon him, warns that Allah will harm those who harm others and show hostility to those who are hostile.
Wow, it's like a cosmic boomerang effect.
Right.
What you put out into the world is going to come back to you.
Exactly.
Sometimes, though, despite our best efforts, disputes are unavoidable.
Unfortunately.
So what about those situations where people are, genuinely at odds over property or resources?
Well, Hadith 3629 tells the story of Samara, who had a row of palm trees in someone else's garden.
Oh, okay.
And the owner of the garden was really annoyed by Samara's frequent visits.
Hmm.
So he asked him to sell the trees. And Samara refused, so the owner went to the Prophet, peace be upon him, for help. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, tried to mediate. He even offered Samara something in exchange for the trees.
Okay.
But Samara remained stubborn, so finally the Prophet, peace be upon him, told the owner of the garden to uproot Samara's trees.
Wow, that seems harsh.
It does, doesn't it?
Why would the prophet peace be upon him, side with the owner of the garden in such a drastic way?
It seems that Samara's refusal to cooperate
Yeah.
and his unwillingness to consider any compromise led to this outcome.
Mm.
It highlights the importance of flexibility,
Yeah,
compromise,
absolutely.
and recognizing the rights of others, even when it comes to our own property.
That's a powerful lesson in respecting boundaries
It is.
and considering the impact our actions have on others.
But what about disputes over water rights? Those can get pretty intense, especially in arid regions.
Yeah, water is a precious resource.
Especially, Hadith 3 to 630 recounts a dispute between Az-Zubair, a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him,
Okay.
and an Ansari man
Okay.
over streamlets in a lava plain.
Mm.
And the Ansari man wanted the water to flow freely, but Az-Zubair refused.
Okay.
And the Prophet, peace be upon him, initially sided with Az-Zubair,
Okay.
but when the Ansari man accused him of showing favoritism,
Right.
the Prophet, peace be upon him, actually revised his ruling.
He did.
He did, and he instructed Az-Zubair to let the water flow to his neighbor once he had finished irrigating his own land.
So even the prophet, peace be upon him, was susceptible to human error.
He was.
But he was quick to rectify the situation
Very quick.
when it was brought to his attention.
And Az-Zubair himself believed that a verse in the Quran urging people to accept the Prophet's judgments, even in matters that displease them, was revealed in response to this incident.
That's really powerful.
It is.
It shows the importance of humility.
Yes.
Recognizing that even those in authority can make mistakes. And it also emphasizes the importance of trusting in the Prophet's, peace be upon him, judgments,
Yes.
even when we don't fully understand or agree with them.
And Hadiths 3631 and 3632 offer more specific guidance
Okay.
on water rights, outlining how to share water from a stream fairly,
Okay.
ensuring that everyone downstream
Yeah,
has access to their fair share,
that's so important.
especially in those regions.
Where water is a matter of life and death.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that justice isn't just about individual rights.
It's not.
It's about ensuring the well-being of the entire community.
Yes.
Managing resources in a way that actually benefits everyone.
And in Hadith 3653,
Okay.
we see another property dispute,
Okay.
this time involving the precincts of a palm tree.
So the area immediately surrounding it.
Exactly.
Okay.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, instructs them to measure the area around the tree to determine the boundaries, demonstrating the importance of precision and clarity in resolving property disputes. Welcome back to our exploration of Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 18.
It's amazing how these teachings on the office of the judge, though centuries old, still offer so much wisdom for, how we navigate decisions and relationships today.
What's fascinating to me?
What's that?
It's how these hadiths emphasize the inner qualities of a judge, just as much as the external, application of the law.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Our inner state surely influences how we act in the world. So what specific qualities do the hadiths highlight?
Well, we've already talked about, the importance of seeking divine guidance and recognizing our limitations as humans.
Right.
But there's also this really strong emphasis on impartiality.
Okay.
That inner strength to resist personal biases
Right.
and remain steadfast, even when facing external pressures.
Feels like a judge needs not only deep knowledge, but incredible strength of character too.
Yes, they do.
Do the hadiths offer any concrete advice on how someone might cultivate these qualities?
Well, while there's no, step-by-step guide, the examples we've discussed provide some clues.
Okay.
Think back to Muad ibn Jabal, who the Prophet, peace be upon him, sent to Yemen as a judge.
Right, the story where he outlined how he'd use the Quran, then the Sunnah, and then his own best judgment if needed.
Exactly. Muad really embodies this blend of knowledge, humility, and willingness to strive for the best possible outcome.
Even in uncharted territory.
Even in uncharted territory.
So it's about continuous learning, seeking wisdom from those who came before us, and remaining open to different perspectives.
Precisely. It's also about cultivating a deep moral compass, a commitment to truth and justice that guides our actions even when those actions are difficult or unpopular.
Almost like building an inner fortress of integrity that can withstand all the storms of external pressures and temptations.
What a powerful image. And this concept of integrity ties directly into another topic addressed in the Hadiths.
Oh, okay.
The idea of prohibited transactions.
Right. Hadith 3597 outlines a few of these, right? Things like combining a loan with a sale, profiting from something you don't control, or even selling something you don't yet possess.
Exactly. These prohibitions are fascinating because they address a range of unethical business practices that could lead to exploitation, financial instability, and a breakdown of trust within the community.
It's almost like a blueprint for ethical business practices that's still relevant centuries later.
I completely agree. The principles remain the same, even if the forms they take have evolved. For example, the prohibition on selling what you don't possess resonates with modern concerns about speculation in financial markets.
That's a great point. I'm thinking about those complicated financial instruments where people are essentially betting on the future value of things they don't actually own.
Exactly.
It's a far cry from the tangible exchange of goods and services that form the basis of early Islamic economies.
Exactly. These teachings encourage us to be mindful of the potential for exploitation and to ground our financial dealings in honesty, transparency, and a genuine exchange of value.
Speaking of ensuring fairness and transparency, I'm curious about how the Hadiths address situations where there's uncertainty or conflicting evidence. We've talked about the importance of oaths and witness testimony, but what happens when things aren't so clear-cut?
Hadiths 3609 and 3613 offer some intriguing insights into how these situations were handled.
Okay.
In one case, two men were disputing ownership of some property, but neither could provide any proof. The Prophet, peace be upon him, instructed them to cast lots to determine who would swear an oath.
So in the absence of clear evidence, it becomes a matter of appealing to a higher power, essentially leaving the judgment in Allah's hands.
Precisely. It's a powerful recognition of the limits of human knowledge and judgment. And in another hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, specifies the wording of the oath,
Okay.
instructing someone to swear by Allah that they possess nothing belonging to the plaintiff.
It seems that there's a specific structure and wording to these oaths that adds weight and seriousness to the testimony. It's not just a casual statement. It's a solemn declaration invoking the name of Allah.
Exactly. And remember, back then, invoking Allah's name in an oath was a weighty matter, not something to be taken lightly. People truly believed that a false oath could have serious consequences, both in this life and the next.
That makes a lot of sense. It adds a whole other dimension to the legal proceedings, reminding everyone involved that they are ultimately accountable to a higher authority.
And speaking of that higher authority, it brings us back to the concept of seeking divine help, something we touched on earlier.
Hadith 3:620, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, teaches that man to say, "For me, Allah sufficeth, and he's the best disposer of affairs." Right. It feels especially relevant when dealing with situations where human judgment falls short or the path forward is unclear.
It's a beautiful reminder that even amidst uncertainty, hardship, or seemingly impossible situations, we can always turn to Allah for support and guidance.
This hadith resonates with me deeply. It's not about passive resignation, but rather an active seeking of divine guidance, a recognition that our own efforts, though important, are ultimately incomplete without Allah's help.
Beautifully articulated. It encapsulates the essence of Islam, that delicate balance between human effort and divine grace. We strive to do our best, but we ultimately acknowledge that the outcome is in Allah's hands.
And speaking of striving to do our best, let's revisit the rulings on debt and imprisonment. I'm particularly interested in understanding how Islamic law balances the rights of creditors with the needs of those who might be genuinely struggling to repay their debts.
It's a crucial balance, and one that the hadiths address with remarkable nuance.
Okay.
While Hadith 3621 makes it clear that deliberately delaying payment when one has the means to do so is a serious offense,
Right.
Islamic law also recognizes that circumstances can change and people can fall into hardship through no fault of their own.
So it's not about punishing those who are genuinely struggling to make ends meet. It's about holding accountable those who are deliberately exploiting the system or taking advantage of others.
Exactly, and that aligns with the overall emphasis on justice, fairness, and compassion that permeates Book 18. The aim is to create a society where financial transactions are based on trust and mutual respect, not on exploitation or the pursuit of personal gain at the expense of others.
This makes me think about the modern-day issue of predatory lending practices, where vulnerable individuals are trapped in cycles of debt with exorbitant interest rates. It seems like a clear violation of the principles of fairness and ethical conduct that we're seeing in these hadiths.
I agree. It highlights the importance of creating financial systems and regulations that protect the vulnerable and ensure that everyone has a fair chance to prosper.
Speaking of systems and regulations, I'm also curious about how imprisonment was used during the Prophet's, peace be upon him, time. We've seen examples where it was used as a means of recovering debt and maintaining public order. But were there any guidelines or limitations on this practice?
Hadiths 3622 and 2623 provide a fascinating glimpse into this. In one instance, the Prophet, peace be upon him, instructs someone to detain their debtor until they receive payment, suggesting that imprisonment was a tool for ensuring that contractual obligations were met.
It's interesting how the concept of imprisonment has evolved over time. Today, we tend to associate it primarily with punishment, but it seems like in the Prophet's, peace be upon him, time, it was also used as a way to enforce contracts and ensure accountability.
You're right. It reflects a different understanding of the role of authority and the relationship between individuals and the community.
Hmm.
And in another hadith, we see that the Prophet, peace be upon him, himself imprisoned someone based on suspicion,
Oh, wow.
indicating its use as a means of maintaining public safety and preventing potential harm.
That makes sense, especially in a society where there might not have been the same levels of law enforcement or surveillance technology that we have today.
Exactly. But even with these examples, it's important to note that Hadith 306-24 demonstrates a clear check on this power. A companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, interrupts his sermon to question the arrest of his neighbors. The Prophet, peace be upon him, immediately addresses the concern and orders their release.
Wow. So even during a sermon, which is a central event in the community,
Absolutely.
he was willing to pause and make sure that justice was being served. It reinforces the idea that even those in authority are accountable for their actions and should be open to scrutiny.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that no one is above the law and that justice should be accessible to all, regardless of their social standing or relationship to those in power. This principle of fairness and accountability extended to all aspects of life,
Right.
from financial dealings to property disputes, even to seemingly mundane matters like shared pathways and access to water.
You mentioned the rulings on property disputes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about those? I'm particularly intrigued by how they balance individual property rights with the needs of the wider community.
Those rulings are really insightful. Hadith 3625 highlights the importance of ensuring that individuals receive what they are owed,
Okay.
even in cases where there might be confusion or uncertainty. The Prophet, peace be upon him, instructs his agent to deliver 15 wasks of dates to a specific individual,
Okay.
even providing a unique sign placing his hand on the agent's collarbone to confirm the recipient's identity.
It's amazing how this detail brings the story to life and highlights the prophet's, peace be upon him, concern for ensuring that justice was served even in seemingly small matters.
And it wasn't just about material possessions. Hadith 3626 addresses the seemingly mundane issue of shared pathways,
Okay.
advising individuals to leave a margin of 7 yards to prevent disputes and maintain peace within the community.
It's a simple yet profound instruction that speaks to the importance of considering the needs of others and fostering a spirit of cooperation.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our actions, however small, can have an impact on those around us. And this principle of avoiding harm and promoting peace is further emphasized in Hadith 3628, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, warns that Allah will harm those who harm others and show hostility to those who are hostile.
It's a reminder that our actions have consequences and that we should strive to create a positive impact on the world around us.
Absolutely. And while avoiding conflict is ideal, the Hadith is also acknowledged that disputes are sometimes unavoidable.
Right.
Hadith 3629 tells the story of Samara and his palm trees, highlighting the importance of flexibility, compromise, and respecting the rights of others, even when it comes to our own property.
I remember that story. It seemed like a harsh outcome, but it underscored the importance of considering the impact our actions have on others and being willing to find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
What strikes me about these rulings on property disputes is that they're not just about enforcing rules or drawing lines in the sand. They're about promoting a deeper sense of harmony and cooperation within the community.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our individual well-being is tied to the well-being of the community as a whole.
Precisely. And this sense of interconnectedness is particularly evident in the rulings on water rights, which can be especially contentious in arid regions where access to water is essential for survival.
I'm eager to hear more about those rulings, especially the story of Az-Zubair and the Ansari man. It was a powerful example of how even the prophet, peace be upon him, was susceptible to human error, but also how he was quick to rectify the situation when it was brought to his attention.
That story is so powerful because it reminds us that no one is infallible, not even the prophet, peace be upon him. But what sets him apart is his willingness to listen to feedback, reconsider his judgments, and ensure that justice is served, even when it means admitting a mistake.
It's a lesson in humility and accountability that we can all learn from, regardless of our position in society. And I think it speaks to a broader theme that we've seen throughout this deep dive, the importance of balance.
Yes. Balance between divine guidance and human intellect, between individual rights and communal responsibilities, between adhering to established principles and adapting to new challenges and complexities. It's a delicate dance, but one that is essential for creating a just and harmonious society.
This has been such an enlightening discussion. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this vast and intricate topic, and I'm eager to delve deeper.
Me too. There's so much more to explore. Stay tuned for part 3 of our deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 18. We'll continue our journey through the world of Islamic jurisprudence, uncovering even more wisdom and insights into the office of the judge.
Welcome back to our deep dive, into the world of Islamic jurisprudence. It's been incredible so far.
It really has.
I'm excited to continue our exploration of Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 18.
Me too.
Delving deeper into this idea of the office of the judge.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. It's been a fascinating journey.
From the spiritual responsibilities of a judge to the practical stuff, oaths and evidence, even prohibited transactions.
And through it all, you see this emphasis on justice, on fairness, just profound respect for the rights of all individuals.
Those are the core principles.
It's a reminder that, these principles, they're meant to be lived out, not just studied in a book.
Absolutely.
One of the things that really resonates with me is that beautiful balance that Islamic law really strives for.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen it in that interplay between divine guidance and human intellect, the careful consideration of individual rights, but also communal responsibilities, and the effort to uphold both the letter of the law, but also the spirit of justice.
It's not just about, rigid adherence to the rules.
No.
It's about finding that balance where compassion and fairness guide how those rules are applied.
It allows Islamic law to be firmly rooted in those principles.
Yes.
But also adaptable to new challenges and new circumstances.
A great example of that adaptability is found in Hadith 3598.
Okay.
It's the case where Abu Musa al-Ash'ari accepts the testimony of non-Muslim witnesses in a will case.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there were no Muslim witnesses available.
Right.
And he drew that parallel to a similar incident from the Prophet's, peace be upon him, time.
He did.
It highlights the flexibility of Islamic jurisprudence in really seeking justice.
Even in those unique situations.
Yeah, situations that might seem outside the norm.
Absolutely.
It shows that Islamic law isn't just a static set of rules.
No, it's not.
It's a dynamic system, capable of navigating complex situations.
While upholding its core values.
Upholding those core values of truth and fairness.
Exactly.
So it really underscores that commitment to finding just resolutions, even when it takes some creative thinking and some adaptation.
And it speaks to that broader point of seeking divine guidance in all our endeavors.
Right.
Remember Hadith 3620, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, teaches that man to say, "For me Allah sufficeth, and he is the best disposer of affairs when he's facing difficult situations."
It's powerful.
It is.
It reminds us that we're not alone.
We're never alone.
Even when we're faced with those challenges or wrestling with those tough decisions,
Yeah.
we can turn to Allah
Always.
for support and for guidance.
Always.
It's easy to get caught up in the legal and procedural aspects of justice.
Right.
But it's really about seeking that connection to the divine.
Yes.
And aligning our actions with a higher purpose.
And, thinking about all this.
Yeah.
What does the Hadith say about the responsibilities of those who are involved in a case?
Oh, that's a great question.
Not just the judge.
Right. Not just the judge, but, the people involved in the case.
Yeah.
What's their role in ensuring a just outcome?
Well, the Hadiths place a strong emphasis on honesty and truthfulness for all parties involved.
Makes sense.
Hadith 3590 outlines those severe consequences of obstructing justice, of engaging in false disputes, of making untrue accusations.
Justice can only prevail when everyone is acting with integrity.
Right. And a just outcome really depends on everyone upholding the truth.
So it's really a collective responsibility.
It is.
This commitment to finding a just resolution rather than just focusing on, individual wins or losses.
And that extends beyond the courtroom.
Beyond the courtroom, yeah.
These teachings are relevant for all of us.
Absolutely, in every aspect of our lives.
In every aspect.
Honesty, integrity, that steadfast commitment to justice should guide all of our interactions.
Whether it's our personal relationships, professional dealings, or our engagement with our communities.
This deep dive into Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 18, has been so enriching.
It really has.
We explored the depths of Islamic jurisprudence, gaining those insights into what makes a righteous judge, that importance of fairness, impartiality, and how these principles are applied.
In so many different situations.
It's not just theoretical, it's really a call to action.
To live it out.
To embody these timeless principles of justice and fairness in our daily lives.
To make it real.
And to work towards a world where truth and compassion prevail.
That's the goal.
So thank you for joining us on this journey through Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 18. May the wisdom and the insights that we've gleaned together inspire us all to be more just, more compassionate, and more balanced in how we interact with each other.
May peace be upon you all.
And we look forward to continuing our explorations with you in future episodes of The Deep Dive. Until then, may you strive for justice and compassion in all that you do.